But of course, I wanted to have more shape, and I didn't want to be as tall as I was, especially as I wanted to be a dancer. And as I have rather large feet, once I was up on toe.
She grew up eating tulip bulbs to survive a war, then became the most famous face in Hollywood. But behind all that elegance, there was one man she almost never talked about publicly, one love she carried for decades. And right before she died, she allegedly said his name out loud. So who was he? And why could Audrey Hepburn never truly get over him? Join us as we tell the full story, because the truth is way bigger than anything they ever show on a movie poster. A childhood from hell. Getting why this romance matters means looking at where Audrey Hepburn actually started. The woman on all those posters didn't exactly have a golden ticket growing up. She was born Audrey Kathleen Ruston in Brussels on May 4th, 1929. At the time, the world didn't care. Nobody was waiting around for a star to be born because life was busy being miserable for everyone else too. She wasn't some chosen child. She was just another kid born right before everything went south. Audrey's early years weren't exactly a Disney movie. Her dad, Joseph Ruston, was a British banker who supposedly liked Nazis more than his own kid. He bailed when she was 6, leaving a mess that never really got cleaned up. Her mom was a Dutch baroness who tried her best, but things got ugly fast when World War II showed up right on time. By the time she turned 10, the Germans moved into the Netherlands. What followed was a long stretch of starving in the dark, hiding from soldiers and watching everything fall apart. Those years of being hungry and terrified didn't just pass, they stuck to her. Life got so bad she was literally eating tulip bulbs to avoid dying. She had to watch her neighbors get dragged off and her uncle get shot by a firing squad. Instead of just giving up, she focused on ballet. It wasn't some magical, poetic choice. It was just the only thing she had that wasn't a total nightmare. By the time the Nazis finally cleared out, she was a skin-and-bones teenager who had seen way too much. She was exhausted and messed up, but she was done waiting for things to get better. She headed to London to do ballet with Marie Rambert, but that didn't pay the bills, so she started taking whatever acting scraps she could find. We're talking background filler and movies so bad, everyone forgot them immediately. Nobody looking at her thought they were seeing a future legend. But everything changed in 1951 because of a random encounter in a hotel lobby. A novelist named Colette spotted her and decided on the spot that she was the lead for a play called Gigi. It was basically a freak accident. That Broadway gig blew up, and Hollywood showed up with a checkbook before she even knew what happened. But even as people began to recognize her, Audrey held onto a personal secret. She had a deep, confusing, unresolved feeling for a man she had known before she became famous. A man who, allegedly, never quite left the corner of her heart she kept most guarded. And that story was only just beginning. The first man who broke her open. Before all the famous leading men and the messy marriages, there was James Hansen. He was a rich British guy with a massive family business and plenty of charm. He fell hard for her while she was still trying to figure out her career. They met in 1951, right as that play Gigi was taking off, and they didn't waste any time. By 1952, they were already engaged to be married. People who saw them together said they actually liked each other. Her friends claimed he made her laugh without it feeling like a performance, which is rare when everyone was watching. He wasn't a Hollywood guy and didn't care about the industry. He was just a dude who liked her before she became a global obsession. For someone who grew up around war and a dad who walked out, having a guy who was just normal probably felt like a massive relief. Being normal didn't last long. Once Roman Holiday started filming in 1952, things got messy in a way that happens when you suddenly become a big deal. She was in Rome with Gregory Peck, working for William Wyler, and had a bunch of people constantly whispering in her ear that she was the next big thing. The engagement with Hansen just kind of fell apart. He was stuck in England and Canada dealing with trucks and money, while she was busy living in a totally different reality. She didn't spend the rest of her life talking trash or making a big drama out of the split. Instead, she just seemed kind of stuck with a permanent case of what if. People who actually knew her said she treated James Hansen like a souvenir from a life she wasn't allowed to have anymore. He was the last guy who wanted her before she became a brand. Once the world owned her face, she never really got that kind of simple connection back. No one can say for sure if that is the whole truth, but it says something about how a woman who would spend the next 40 years navigating love in the public eye felt. And the man who would put that architecture to the test the most was already waiting in the wings. William Holden and the love that was never supposed to happen. If you want to talk about the actual chaos in her dating life, William Holden is the main event. This wasn't some polite little crush. She fell for him hard and fast, right when things were at their worst. They met while filming Sabrina in 1953, and according to basically everyone there, the spark was real and completely doomed. It was one of those intense situations that looks great in a movie, but is a total train wreck in reality. By the time they met, William was a massive deal with an Oscar for Stalag 17 to prove it. He had that rough, leading man energy that people couldn't look away from. There were just two tiny problems. First, he was already married and told her straight up that he wasn't going to get a divorce. Second, he'd already had a vasectomy. When she mentioned wanting kids, that was pretty much the end of the line. There was no way to fix it, and no future to build. The door didn't just close, it was locked from the outside. This wasn't just some casual hookup. People who wrote books about her life insisted they actually loved each other, even though the whole thing crashed and burned before they even finished filming the movie. The mess didn't just go away, though. Decades later, in an interview, she talked about that time like she was walking through a minefield. She admitted things were intense and that it sucked to lose him. She basically said some people leave a permanent dent in your life that never pops back out. She never actually said his name, but she didn't have to. Everyone already knew who she was talking about. People who knew her later on said she looked back at the early 50s as the time she finally grew up. It was a weird mix of becoming a household name and getting her heart ripped out at the same time. She wouldn't call it a tragedy, but she did say it changed her. It was basically the universe teaching her exactly how much she could feel before she snapped. Once you figure out you can survive that much drama, you can't exactly go back to being naive. Audrey didn't just sit around and mope. She kept moving because that was the only option. Still, people kept wondering if any of the guys who came later actually filled the holes left by those first few disasters. It's the kind of thing that stayed under the surface for years, only to pop back up right before she died. Even after all the Oscars and the global fame, the ghosts of her 20-something self were still hanging around. So what do her marriages actually reveal about the kind of love Audrey Hepburn believed she deserved? The marriages that told two different stories. Audrey went through two marriages. First, she hitched herself to actor Mel Ferrer in 1954, and later she tried again with an Italian psychiatrist named Andrea Dotti in 1969. She got the kids she always wanted out of the deal, but neither relationship actually stuck. Both ended in divorce court. Mel Ferrer was a complicated figure. Intelligent, artistically ambitious, and reportedly controlling in ways that several of Audrey's friends found troubling over time. Their marriage lasted 14 years, which in Hollywood terms is an eternity, but the texture of those years was uneven. They collaborated professionally, including on the 1959 film Green Mansions. They had a son, Sean, and for long stretches, by all accounts, they genuinely tried. But Audrey suffered multiple miscarriages before Sean was born, and the grief of those losses, combined with the pressures of two major careers in constant orbit around each other, took a toll that eventually proved insurmountable. Andrea Dotti, her second husband, seemed at first to offer something different. He was not an actor. He was not consumed by ambition or a competing public identity. He was warm, funny, and apparently devoted. They met on a yacht in 1968, married in 1969, and had a son, Luca. But Andrea's alleged chronic infidelities became an open secret in Rome, and Audrey, who had built her personal myth in part on a kind of dignified suffering, found herself in a marriage that required her to look away from things she found genuinely painful. After dumping Dotti in 1982, she finally found someone who wasn't a total headache. She spent her last decade with a Dutch actor named Robert Wolders. People who knew them said it was actually a good, quiet relationship. By that point, she'd been through enough drama to deserve a break. The thing people miss about her is that she wasn't a loud person. She didn't go on talk shows to cry about her exes. She kept her baggage locked up tight and only let people see the cracks in the armor every once in a while. But stepping away from the spotlight didn't mean she was slowing down. It meant she was finally choosing a different stage, one that actually mattered to her. So what did Audrey Hepburn really leave behind in Hollywood? And what was she truly searching for when she walked away? The humanitarian years, and what she was running toward. By the 80s, Audrey was basically done with the Hollywood circus. She did a quick bit for Spielberg in 1989, but her mind was already somewhere else. She signed up as a UNICEF ambassador in 1988 and started hitting the road hard. We're talking about places like Somalia, Ethiopia, and Vietnam. While the journalists were busy losing their minds and crying over the living conditions, she stayed calm. She just sat with the kids and held their hands. It wasn't some fake celebrity PR move. She understood what it was like to be a starving kid because she had been one during the war. To her, those kids weren't just a cause. They were a mirror. This part of her life finally showed what she actually cared about. And it wasn't the applause. She wasn't looking to be worshipped. She just wanted to be useful for once. All the iconic style and the charming movie star routine were basically just tools she used to stay afloat. The real version of her was the kid who had survived a war and decided that if she ever got any leverage, she'd use it to keep other kids from going through that same hell. It wasn't about being a hero. It was about finally doing something that felt real. Robert Wolders, who was with her during these years, later said she was most herself at that time. Not the movie star, not the fashion icon, just the woman. He talked about her kindness, her sense of humor, and how she didn't let the sad things she saw make her feel sorry for herself. He also mentioned that she became more open about her feelings in her later years, which was different from how private she had been before. He suggested that she start to share her past more openly and to speak about things she had avoided naming for many years. In this situation, where a woman finally allowed herself to reflect without hesitation, the conversation supposedly took place. Those who were closest to her would later explain it in careful, cautious ways that still made it clear what she had said and who she was referring to. What she said before she died. The end came fast. After a UNICEF trip to Somalia in late 1992, she found out she had appendiceal cancer. By January 20th, 1993, she was dead at 63 in her house in Switzerland. The public went into a full-scale mourning meltdown because she was one of those people who felt like a permanent fixture of the classy world. But while the world was busy writing tributes, the people actually in the room with her were dealing with something a lot more personal. Her final weeks weren't a public performance. They were just a quiet, messy ending for a woman who was finally done with the spotlight. Audrey spent her final weeks reflecting on her life and what could have been, and allegedly before her death, she asked, what if she had just stayed with him? She stated that she had come to terms with the difficult aspects of her life, such as failed marriages, movies she turned down, and miscarriages. She admitted that she had felt lonely while everyone admired her. She'd made peace with the majority of her past. In the end, the name she kept bringing up wasn't one of her ex-husbands, and it wasn't William Holden, even though that was the one the tabloids loved. Instead, she kept circling back to James Hansen. He was the rich British guy she was engaged to before Roman holiday turned her into a brand. He represented the version of her life that didn't involve being a global icon or a UNICEF saint. There was no Hollywood drama there, no Oscars, and no public expectations. Just a normal relationship that got swallowed by her career. According to the people in the room, she spent some time wondering what would have happened if she'd just stayed with Hansen and skipped the Hollywood career entirely. She wasn't having a total meltdown or saying her whole life was a mistake. She was just being honest. She was finally admitting that the normal life she gave up was a real option she'd never quite let go of. It wasn't about wanting to be a different person. It was just a final quiet look at the life she traded away for the one everyone else saw on screen. James Hansen, who had gone on to build one of Britain's largest industrial conglomerates and had been made a life peer as Lord Hansen of Egerton, never spoke publicly about Audrey's final words. He died in 2004, 11 years after her. Whatever he knew or felt about what she had allegedly said, he carried it with him. Some things, even in the age of everything being made public, remain between two people. The legacy of a love story the world almost missed. Hearing that Audrey Hepburn thought about her old boyfriend doesn't change what she achieved. It doesn't mean she was unhappy or that she was defined by a man. All it shows is that she was a real person. Even someone as famous and successful as she was, still wondering what if about the life she didn't choose. It's a very common human feeling to look back and think about how things might have been different if you had taken a different path. Society often focuses on a famous woman's beauty and forgets she is a real person. People knew Audrey Hepburn from her movies and her fashion, which created a very specific public image. However, her actual life was difficult. Her father left when she was young, she lacked food during the war, and she faced many personal problems in her marriages. She worked for UNICEF because she had experienced hard times herself, not just to maintain her reputation. Audrey Hepburn was a person with a private life. The fact that she remembered James Hansen at the end of her life is not a scandal. There was no secret or bad behavior involved. It was just a woman thinking about a time when her life was simpler, before she became famous. This memory is not shocking or dramatic. It is just a normal part of being human. People still talk about this story because it shows that even very famous people value simple, personal connections. Audrey Hepburn received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1992 for her work with children. After she died, her son continued her charity work. While people still love her movies and her style, her life was about more than being famous. She was a person who cared about others and tried her best to help them. The fact that Audrey Hepburn thought about her life before she became famous is not surprising. Fame makes a person's life public, but her early relationships were private. People often value the memories they made before their lives became complicated or busy. These experiences stay with a person because they were personal and not influenced by what others expected of them. Did she make the right choice? Was fame worth what she left behind? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.